Imagine this. You're living your life, minding your own business, when someone looks down on you, judges you, and mocks you for something you can't control. Maybe it's your job, your clothes, or the way you live. Now, imagine that person has no idea who you really are or the power you secretly hold. That's exactly what happens in today's story. A tale of hidden identities, shocking revelations, and the ultimate revenge served cold. This isn't just a story about wealth and poverty. It's about the masks we wear, the assumptions we make, and the moment everything changes. By the end of this video, you'll get the answer to the question that brought you here. What happens when someone underestimates you, only to discover you're not who they thought you were? Stick around because this is one story you won't want to miss. Let's set the stage. Meet Emily, a young woman who works tirelessly at a local cafe, serving coffee with a smile despite the long hours and low pay. To everyone around her, she's just another struggling waitress, someone who blends into the background of everyday life. But Emily has a secret one she's kept hidden for years. Then there's Daniel, the arrogant, wealthy businessman who frequents the cafe. He's the kind of guy who thinks money makes him better than everyone else, and he's not shy about showing it. To him, Emily is invisible, just another face in the crowd, someone he can mock and belittle without a second thought. But what Daniel doesn't know is that Emily's life is about to take a dramatic turn, and it's going to change everything he thought he knew about her and himself. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've heard stories like this before. But trust me, this one is different. This isn't just a rags to riches tale. It's a story about power, pride, and the moment someone's world is turned upside down. It's about the look on Daniel's face when he realizes the woman he mocked is actually a hidden heiress, someone with more wealth and influence than he could ever dream of. It's about the moment Emily decides she's had enough and takes control of her own destiny. And it's about the lessons we can all learn from their story about humility, kindness, and the dangers of judging a book by its cover. But here's the thing. I'm not going to give you all the answers right away. Because the best stories are the ones that keep you guessing, the ones that pull you in and make you feel like you're right there in the middle of the action. So, as we dive into this story together, I want you to think about this. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had someone look down on you, only to realize later that they had no idea who you really were? If so, you're going to relate to Emily in ways you never expected. And if you've ever been in Daniel's shoes, judging someone before you knew the full story, this might just be the wake-up call you need. As we move forward, I want you to pay close attention to the details. Notice the way Emily carries herself, the quiet strength she shows even when the world seems to be against her. Notice the way Daniel's arrogance blinds him to the truth, and how his assumptions lead him down a path he never saw coming. And most importantly, notice the moment everything changes, the moment the hidden heiress is revealed, and the balance of power shifts in a way no one could have predicted. Because that's the moment that will leave you on the edge of your seat, wondering what happens next. But before we get to that moment, let's take a step back and really get to know these characters. Emily isn't just a waitress. She's a woman with a past, a story, and a reason for keeping her true identity hidden. Daniel isn't just a wealthy businessman. He's a man who's built his life on a foundation of pride and privilege, and it's about to come crashing down around him. And then there's the cafe itself, a place that seems ordinary on the surface, but holds secrets of its own. These are the pieces of the puzzle. And as we put them together, you're going to see a picture emerge that's as shocking as it is satisfying. Now, I know you're here because you want answers. You want to know how Emily goes from being a struggling waitress to a hidden heiress. You want to know how Daniel reacts when he finds out the truth. And you want to know what happens next, how their lives change, and what it all means for the people around them. I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll have those answers. But here's the catch. You're going to have to stick around to get them. Because this isn't just a story, it's an experience. And I want you to feel every twist, every turn, and every moment of triumph as if you were right there in the room with Emily and Daniel. So as we dive into this story together, I want you to do something for me. I want you to imagine yourself in Emily's shoes. Imagine what it feels like to be underestimated, to be judged, and to have the power to change everything in an instant. And then imagine yourself in Daniel's shoes, what it feels like to realize you've made a mistake, and that the person you look down on is actually someone you should have been looking up to all along. Because that's the power of this story. It's not just about Emily and Daniel, it's about all of us. It's about the masks we wear, the assumptions we make, and the moments that change everything. And speaking of moments that change everything, let's talk about the cliffhanger. Because just when you think you know where this story is going, something happens that turns everything on its head. It's the moment Emily's secret is revealed, the moment Daniel realizes he's been wrong all along, and the moment the balance of power shifts in a way no one could have predicted. But I'm not going to tell you what happens next, not yet. Because that's the moment you're going to have to wait for. That's the moment that's going to keep you watching, keep you guessing, and keep you coming back for more. So, are you ready to find out what happens when someone mocks a hidden heiress? Are you ready to see the look on Daniel's face when he realizes the truth? And are you ready to discover the lessons we can all learn from Emily's story? If so, then you're in the right place. Because this is just the beginning. The real story, the one that will leave you breathless, shocked, and maybe even a little inspired, is just around the corner. So don't go anywhere. The best is yet to come. Emily's life wasn't always about serving coffee and scraping by. Once, she had lived in a world of luxury, a world where money was no object and her every need was met. But that world had been shattered years ago, leaving her with nothing but a secret she vowed to keep hidden. Her father, a self-made billionaire, had always been a private man, fiercely protective of his family and their wealth. When he passed away unexpectedly, Emily's life took a dramatic turn. His will was clear. She would inherit his fortune, but only after she proved she could live without it. It was his way of teaching her humility, of ensuring she understood the value of hard work and the importance of staying grounded. For years, Emily had honored his wishes, living a simple life under the radar, working jobs that barely paid the bills and keeping her true identity a closely guarded secret. But now, something was stirring inside her, a quiet determination to reclaim the life she had left behind, and to show the world that she was more than just a waitress. Daniel, on the other hand, had never known what it was like to struggle. Born into a wealthy family, he had always been handed everything on a silver platter. His father's real estate empire had made him one of the most powerful men in the city, and Daniel had grown up believing that money and status were all that mattered. He was the kind of man who measured people's worth by the size of their bank accounts, and he had no patience for those he considered beneath him. When he walked into the cafe that morning, he barely noticed Emily as she handed him his usual order. To him, she was just another face in the crowd, someone who existed only to serve him. But what he didn't know was that Emily had been watching him, studying him, and quietly biding her time. She had seen the way he treated people, the way he looked down on anyone who didn't fit into his narrow definition of success. And she had made a decision. It was time to teach him a lesson he would never forget. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between Emily and Daniel began to simmer beneath the surface. Daniel continued to visit the cafe, his arrogance on full display as he barked orders and made snide comments about the help. But Emily remained calm, her quiet strength a stark contrast to his brash demeanor. She knew something he didn't, something that would change everything. And she was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it. Meanwhile, the cafe itself seemed to hold its own secrets. The owner, a kind but mysterious man named Mr. Thompson, had always taken a special interest in Emily. He had given her the job when no one else would, and he often seemed to know more about her than he let on. Was it possible he knew her secret? Or was there something else going on behind the scenes? The cafe became a stage, its daily routines masking the undercurrents of intrigue and hidden agendas. But Emily wasn't the only one with secrets. Daniel's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Behind the facade of wealth and success, he was struggling to keep his father's empire afloat. The real estate market was changing, and Daniel's lack of experience was starting to show. He had made a series of bad investments, and the pressure was mounting. His father, a stern and demanding man, had always expected greatness from him, and Daniel was terrified of failing. He had built his entire identity around his wealth and status, and the thought of losing it all was more than he could bear. But instead of facing his problems head-on, he took out his frustrations on those around him, using his arrogance as a shield to hide his insecurities. Little did he know, his actions were about to catch up with him in a way he could never have imagined. As the story unfolded, new characters began to emerge, each adding their own layer of complexity to the narrative. There was Sarah, Emily's best friend and confidant, who had always been there for her through thick and thin. Sarah was the only person who knew the truth about Emily's past, and she had been urging her to come clean for years. But Emily had always resisted, afraid of what might happen if her secret got out. Then there was Marcus, a charming and ambitious journalist who had been investigating Daniel's business dealings. Marcus had a hunch that something wasn't right, and he was determined to uncover the truth. His path would soon cross with Emily's, setting the stage for a collision of secrets and revelations that would change everything. The cafe, too, played a central role in the unfolding drama. It was a place where people from all walks of life came together, their stories intertwining in ways they could never have anticipated. There was Mrs. Henderson, the elderly regular who always sat in the corner with her knitting, watching the world go by with a knowing smile. And there was Jake, the young barista with dreams of becoming a musician, who had a crush on Emily but was too shy to say anything. Each of them had their own struggles and dreams, their own secrets and desires. And as the tension between Emily and Daniel continued to build, their lives became increasingly intertwined, creating a web of relationships and conflicts that would soon come to a head. But the biggest mystery of all was still to come. Emily had been planning something big. She had been quietly gathering information, piecing together the puzzle of Daniel's life, and waiting for the right moment to strike. She knew that revealing her true identity would be a shock, but she also knew it wouldn't be enough. She wanted to expose Daniel for who he really was, to show the world that his wealth and status were nothing more than a fade, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. But as the day of reckoning approached, she began to wonder, was she prepared for the consequences? What would happen when the truth came out? And how would Daniel react when he realized the woman he had mocked was the one person who could destroy him? The tension was palpable, the stakes higher than ever. Emily's secret was a ticking time bomb, and it was only a matter of time before it exploded. But as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, it became clear that this wasn't just a story about revenge. It was a story about identity, about the masks we wear and the truths we hide. It was a story about power and privilege and the lengths people will go to protect them. And it was a story about the moment everything changes, the moment the hidden heiress steps into the light and the world is forced to see her for who she really is. But that moment was still to come. For now, the tension continued to build, the mystery deepening with every passing day. And as the characters' lives became increasingly entangled, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The day of the charity gala arrived, and the city's elite gathered in a glittering ballroom filled with champagne towers, crystal chandeliers, and the hum of hushed conversations. It was the kind of event where power brokers rubbed shoulders with socialites, and everyone was there to see and be seen. Daniel, dressed in a tailored tuxedo, moved through the crowd with his usual air of arrogance, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries with people he'd barely tolerated. He was there to make an impression, to remind everyone that he was still the golden boy of the real estate world, even as his empire teetered on the edge of collapse. What he didn't know was that Emily was also there, hidden in plain sight. She had traded her cafe uniform for an elegant gown that turned heads the moment she walked in. Her transformation was so complete that even Daniel didn't recognize her at first. But when their eyes met across the room, something shifted. For a moment, Daniel froze, his confidence faltering as he tried to place her. And then it hit him: the waitress from the cafe. What was she doing here? Emily's presence at the gala was no accident. She had been planning this moment for weeks, carefully orchestrating every detail to ensure that Daniel would be caught off guard. She had used her connections she had kept hidden for years to secure an invitation, and now she was ready to make her move. But this wasn't just about revealing her true identity. It was about exposing Daniel for who he really was. She had spent months gathering information about his shady business dealings, his lies, and the secrets he had worked so hard to keep buried. And tonight she was going to use that information to bring him down. But as she stood there watching him from across the room, she felt a flicker of doubt. Was she ready for this? Was she prepared for the fallout? And what would happen when the truth came out? Meanwhile, Marcus, the journalist who had been investigating Daniel, was also at the gala, blending into the crowd as he gathered evidence for his expose. He had been following Daniel's every move, and he knew that something big was about to happen. What he didn't know was that Emily was the key to everything. When he spotted her, he was struck by her presence, the way she carried herself with a quiet confidence that seemed out of place in a room full of pretenders. Intrigued, he made his way over to her, introducing himself and striking up a conversation. As they talked, he realized that she knew more about Daniel than she was letting on. But before he could press her for details, the lights dimmed, and the evening's program began. The host took the stage, welcoming everyone and announcing the evening's special guest, a mysterious benefactor who had made a generous donation to the charity. The room buzzed with curiosity as the host revealed the name, Emily Carter. Daniel's jaw dropped as Emily stepped onto the stage, her transformation complete. The room erupted in applause, but Daniel could only stare in disbelief. How was this possible? How could the waitress from the cafe be the same person standing on that stage, commanding the attention of everyone in the room? As Emily began to speak, her voice steady and confident, she revealed the truth about her identity, not just as an heiress, but as the daughter of a man Daniel had once admired and envied. The room fell silent as she recounted her father's legacy, and the lessons he had taught her about humility and hard work. And then, with a calm determination, she turned her attention to Daniel. What happened next shocked everyone. Emily didn't just reveal her own secret, she exposed Daniel's. With the help of Marcus's investigation, she laid bare the truth about his failing business, his lies, and the unethical practices he had used to maintain his facade of success. The room was in an uproar, and Daniel could do nothing but stand there, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. But just when it seemed like the night couldn't get any more dramatic, an unexpected twist emerged. As Emily stepped down from the stage, she was approached by Mr. Thompson, the cafe owner. He had been watching everything unfold, and now he had something to say. Pulling her aside, he revealed a secret of his own, one that would change everything Emily thought she knew about her father's will and the conditions of her inheritance. The revelation left Emily reeling. Her father's will had been more than just a test of her character. It had been a safeguard, a way to protect her from the dangers of the world he had left behind. But now, with the truth out in the open, Emily realized that her fight was far from over. Daniel, humiliated and desperate, was not going to go down without a fight. He had resources, connections, and a ruthless determination to protect his empire. And as the gala descended into chaos, Emily knew that the battle was just beginning. The stakes had never been higher, and the lines between friend and foe had never been blurrier. With Marcus by her side and Mr. Thompson's revelation hanging over her, Emily had to decide how far she was willing to go to protect her father's legacy and herself. But the biggest twist was yet to come. As the crowd began to disperse, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man Emily hadn't seen in years. It was her uncle, a man she had believed to be dead. His sudden appearance sent shockwaves through the room, and Emily could only stare in disbelief as he approached her. His presence raised more questions than answers, and his intentions were far from clear. Was he there to help her? Or did he have his own agenda? As the night drew to a close, Emily realized that the game had changed. The hidden heiress was no longer hidden, and the secrets she had worked so hard to protect were now out in the open. But with new allies and enemies emerging, one thing was certain: the fight for her father's legacy was about to get a lot more complicated. And as the tension continued to build, the audience was left wondering, what would happen next? The room seemed to hold its breath as Emily's uncle stepped into the light, his presence casting a shadow over the chaos that had just unfolded. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Time stood still. Emily's mind raced as she tried to process his sudden appearance. She hadn't seen him since her father's funeral, and she had believed him to be dead, lost to the same world of secrets and power struggles that had defined her family's legacy. But here he was, alive and standing before her, his expression unreadable. Before she could speak, he raised a hand to silence her, his voice low and urgent as he said, "We don't have much time. There's more you need to know." The weight of his words hung in the air, and Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Whatever was coming next, she knew it would change everything. As the gala dissolved into chaos, Emily, her uncle, Marcus, and Mr. Thompson retreated to a private room, the tension between them palpable. Her uncle wasted no time in revealing the truth. Emily's father had foreseen the dangers that would come with his fortune, and he had taken extraordinary measures to protect her. The will, the conditions of her inheritance, even the kafid had all been part of a larger plan to shield her from the cutthroat world of wealth and power. But there was more. Her uncle explained that Daniel's father, a former business partner of Emily's dad, had been involved in a series of illegal dealings that had nearly destroyed their empire. When Emily's father discovered the truth, he had cut ties with Daniel's family, but the damage had already been done. The feud between the two families ran deep, and Daniel's actions were not just the result of his own arrogance, they were part of a legacy of betrayal and revenge. Emily's uncle had been working behind the scenes to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. And now, with Emily's help, they had the chance to end it once and for all. The revelation left Emily stunned, but there was no time to process it. Daniel, desperate and cornered, had already begun to retaliate. Using his remaining connections, he had launched a smear campaign against Emily, painting her as a fraud and a manipulator. The media, always hungry for scandal, had taken the bait, and Emily's newfound fame was quickly turning into a nightmare. But she wasn't alone. Marcus, armed with the evidence he had gathered, published his expose, revealing the truth about Daniel's business dealings and the dark history between their families. The public backlash was swift and brutal, and Daniel's empire began to crumble under the weight of his own lies. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson stepped forward, revealing that he had been a close friend of Emily's father and had been tasked with watching over her. His cafe had been a safe haven, a place where she could learn the value of hard work and humility without the pressures of her inheritance. With his support, Emily began to fight back, using her platform to set the record straight and reclaim her father's legacy. The final showdown came at a high-stakes board meeting, where Emily and Daniel faced off in a battle of wits and wills. The room was tense as Emily presented her case, her voice steady and unwavering as she laid out the evidence of Daniel's wrongdoing. But Daniel, ever the manipulator, tried to turn the tables, accusing Emily of using her wealth and influence to destroy him. It was a desperate move, and it might have worked if not for one final twist. As the board members deliberated, a video played on the screen, a recording of Daniel admitting to his crimes, his voice cold and unrepentant. The footage had been obtained by Emily's uncle, who had been working tirelessly behind the scenes to bring Daniel to justice. The room erupted in outrage, and Daniel was left with no choice but to resign, his empire in ruins. With Daniel defeated, Emily finally had the chance to step into her true role as the heir to her father's legacy. But the victory was bittersweet. She had learned hard lessons about trust, power, and the cost of revenge. As she stood in her father's office, surrounded by the remnants of his empire, she made a decision. She would honor his legacy not by clinging to the past, but by building something new, a company rooted in integrity, compassion, and the values he had taught her. With Marcus by her side and the support of her uncle and Mr. Thompson, she began to rebuild, turning her father's vision into a reality that would make him proud. But the story didn't end there. In a final, unexpected twist, Emily discovered that her father had left her one last gift, a letter, hidden away for years, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. In it, he expressed his pride in the woman she had become and his hope that she would use her power to make a difference in the world. He also revealed a secret he had known about her struggles, her doubts, and her fears, and he had always believed in her. The letter brought tears to her eyes, but it also gave her strength. She realized that her journey wasn't just about reclaiming her inheritance. It was about finding herself and the courage to step into her own power. As the story came to a close, Emily stood at the helm of her father's company, a symbol of resilience and hope. The hidden heiress was hidden no more, and her story had become an inspiration to countless others. But the true victory wasn't in defeating Daniel or reclaiming her fortune, it was in the lessons she had learned along the way. About the dangers of pride, the importance of humility, and the power of standing up for what's right. And as the camera panned out, showing Emily looking out over the city she now called her own, the audience was left with a final thought. Sometimes, the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the strength to rise above adversity and the courage to forge your own path. And with that, the story of the hidden heiress came to an end, a tale of secrets, revenge, and redemption that would leave viewers in awe long after the screen went dark.